So, the F87 BMW M2 has cemented its legacy as a living legend. Coming from such a rich pedigree and having such a stacked history, it's definitely one of the best cars BMW has ever produced. If you want to know all about the M2's history and how it came to be such a legend, feel free to check out the video I done on it last week. As good as it is stock, the M2 leaves a lot of power on the table for tuners to extract, and its looks have a lot of untapped potential. So the aftermarket stepped up to provide owners with the mods to get the most out of their cars in terms of looks and performance. So here's my ranking of what I think are the top 10 best M2s in the country. First off, in 10th place is the Misano Blue M2 CS, owned by a friend of the channel. This car has an incredible spec paired with the owner who really knows how to send it sideways and burn rubber. So, next up in 9th place is the monstrous M2, a regular looking OG M2 to the unsuspecting eye, but in reality this is far from being a regular stock M2. This OG M2 has been kitted out with an extremely rare AC Schnitzer exhaust that made its N55 come alive. Like every other M2 on this list, it has no problem getting sideways and burning rubber. That's going to be a common factor. M2 is a rear-wheel drive car and the owners love sending them sideways. So next up in 8th place is the NM2, a relatively stock M2 competition, which is a shining example of why the BMW M2 is such a legendary machine. This white M2 slides around and looks like it's dancing on ice because it always looks flawless. Next up in 7th place is the Alpha M2 that has had the works done to it by both Strata Performance and MPH. This car has a host of cosmetic mods like the abundance of carbon fiber throughout. It also has the M Performance wing and blacked out OLED lights.
Dubai shit, Dubai with different place, different trips. ATL, this shit ludicrous. Oh well, I know he's sneaking those. Get those in, you can handle those.
Next up is going to be a very controversial place. Looking back, I think this car should have been ranked a lot higher than what it is because of how skilled the driver is. We have the one and only Coastal M2. This car has an extensive mod list, so let's run through it. Starting off, it has carbon fiber fenders, a carbon fiber boot, OLED lights, and a forged carbon front splitter. But the looks are only 10% of this car. The rest is raw performance. This car is an absolute tire shredder. The owner uses it as a drift missile and does not disappoint.
That I ain't gon' feel it. Yeah. I ain't just saying red, I'm on the red for the book. All of my diamonds shining. Y'all bitch to me. That is.
So for the top 5, we're getting into extremely modified car territory, and from now on, all of the cars we mentioned will have had their turbos modified. So in 5th place is the Orca Auto Body M2 that has had its roof chopped off, has been absolutely slammed to the ground, and is on its 3rd color change. The car has yellow DRLs and carbon fiber everywhere. But the highlight of this car is the absolutely massive turbo kit that has been strapped to its engine. Okay, so I have a confession to make. The Orca M2 isn't a real M2. It's actually an M240i with a B58 engine that has been built up. But this is a very well built M240i. It has the body panels from an M2 comp, and it makes more power than 90% of the M2s out there. So I feel like it's a worthy contender of running amongst the big boys. Let me know what you guys think. If you disagree, okay, but I think it does. The car is claimed to be running around 700 horsepower, which is a mighty amount, and it's more than enough to compete with M2s. And since it was built by BYM Fabrication, I definitely believe these numbers. Next up in 4th place is the Valkyrie M2, an OG N55 M2 that has had a compound turbo setup installed on it, making it an absolute beast. And since this is such a wild experiment, this M2 has to be a world's first. Drum roll please. Now for the top 3 podium sitters. These are some of the wildest M2 builds in the world. There really isn't anything that can match them. These are some of the coolest cars out there. 3rd place goes to the Black Beast, owned and built by BYM Fabrication. This OG M2 has had a Pulsar G35 1050 turbo installed, and it is making 752 horsepower. It's currently the highest rated OG M2 in SA since it's running a stock motor and stock gearbox. What sets this M2 apart from the rest is how vicious the car is when it comes to burning rubber. This car is an absolute beast once second gear hits, and it sends the car sideways. Next up, for the 2nd place, we have Bambi M2. An M2 competition which was fully kitted out by Race. Yes, the same people that modify Lamborghinis and Ferraris, yeah, they modified this M2. It has a beautiful set of Vossen wheels and a 3-liter CSR inspired livery. This car has had a host of performance mods done to it by Racing Dream Performance. It has an RDM hybrid turbo setup, a meth kit, ethanol spark plugs, and a custom tune. It now makes 673 horsepower with its S55 engine, which means it's already up there with some of the most powerful S55s in the country. For first place, we have to bow down and show respect to the one and only Banshee M2. Banshee is the most complete package of an M2 that this country has ever seen. So, this M2 comp is fully built and is running a huge single turbo kit on its S55. Banshee is absolutely mental. Even though no official figures have been released on how much power it's making, it's safe to assume it's between the 800 and 900 horsepower mark, which is plenty to be a good drift car. This car also shoots the biggest and loudest flames I've ever seen, and even after 2 years, I haven't heard anything louder than this. On top of the noise, the flames this car shoots out are absolutely massive. So this car easily takes the first place position as one of the best M2s in South Africa, and debatably one of the best M2s in the world. So that's it from me today. I hope you enjoyed my rankings. If you disagree with me, feel free to let your voice be heard in the comment section below. I know there's many other legendary M2 builds that have been done in South Africa, so I think a part 2 is in order. A part 2 will definitely be coming soon for this video. If there are any other M2s, maybe you own one, it's owned by a friend or someone you know, or even just the M2 you've seen on the internet that I left out in this video that you think is worthy of being in part 2, feel free to drop that in the comment section down below. Since this is a YouTube video, please remember to do the standard procedure. Like, share, subscribe. That's it from me today. Bye-bye.